All right, so today we're going to be waxing a snowboard. I have my GNU Rider's Choice C3 here that I'm currently riding. It's a lot of fun, but today we're going to go and give it a wax. I was just out in Tahoe for 3 weeks, and it has been waxed since then, so all of the wax right now has been scraped off for 3 weeks of riding. We're going to go through some of the basics that you need, and then I'll go and actually wax the board here in front of you. So first let's talk about what you need. Kind of basic. Wax. Wax is the first thing. You can see there's a bunch of different types of wax to get. I'm using a all-temp wax. So you can see it says it works between 8 degrees and 30 degrees Fahrenheit. There's a bunch of different ranges. You can get cold temp wax, you can get warmer wax, you can get all-temp wax that has a wider range, maybe like minus 10 to 40. This is a plant-based wax, kind of eco-friendly, that's why I chose it. And it meets most of my riding conditions. You can see I've used the wax before because it's kind of cut off there. Second thing you'll need is a scraper. So once you put the wax on the board, you need a way of getting it off. This is actually really similar to mountain biking or any kind of biking for that matter. So if you're familiar with that, whenever you put oil on your chain, you're actually not supposed to leave the oil out and about on the chain itself. It's supposed to drip into the barrels, and then whatever's left excess on the outside, you're supposed to wipe up with a rag. And that way it doesn't collect dirt. It's pretty similar here. You want the melted wax to seep into the board, and anything that's left on the surface is really not useful to us. So we use this to scrape it and get it off. Another thing you'll need is some kind of brush. So I use the brush for removing some of the old wax in order to free it up for the new wax to go in. There are kind of two different methods. There's a chemical method you can use that'll seep up some of the wax from within the board so that it can be taken off and be ready and have your board ready for the next coating. I've also found that a lot of people recommend just using a wire brush to do the same. And personally, I prefer non-chemical methods. So this is what I'm going to be using, just wiping along it to bring up a lot of the old wax. Like I said, I've been riding for 3 weeks without any wax treatment. There's really not much wax left in the board anyway. Some other things you'll need are another brush for the finishing structure. So once you put the wax in and you melt it all, you actually want to be able to go through and give the coating, whatever's left, a little bit of structure. So what structure means is basically paths and routes for water to seep through the board. So when you're riding down the mountain and you encounter the snow, you want little tiny microstructures that the snow, ice, water, whatever be it, can slide through the board, which will help with your speed and it won't slow you down as much. So the cheap way to do it is to get a Scotch-Brite pad. You can see that's what this is, very simple. So once you've put the wax on and you've scraped all of the excess off, you just kind of go through, rub it, and it gives you that structure. Other ways to do it are with a horsehair brush. That's pretty popular, and then also a nylon brush. And the different types of brushes depend on both your financial situation and also the temperature that you'll be riding in. So if it's a colder temperature, you want less structure. Just think about it, it's colder, there might be more ice, there might be snow, but it's not really gonna melt as much. And because of that, there's not much water to be running through the seams of your board, through the little microstructures. But if you're riding in maybe spring temperatures where it's warmer, there's gonna be a lot of water, it might be a wetter snow, and because of that, you're gonna want more grooves. Again, this is at the micro scale, more grooves for the water to be able to seep through so that it doesn't get kind of stuck and slow down your ride as you're going. So for now, just the cheap Scotch-Brite pad works for me. Last thing, well, you need your board, and aside from that, you'll need some kind of iron. So, I mean, technically, just like a normal clothes iron would work, but they make snowboard-specific irons. They're really useful because they're flat bottoms, so you can just sit it down, take your hands off, and it stays up, keeps the ironing surface away from your board. You can see mine comes with a little dial. Basically it goes from 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius all the way up to 356 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius. What I'll be operating at today is it's right around 115 degrees Celsius. And that's just based on the recommendation from the wax. But as long as whenever you put your wax against it, it melts the wax, that's hot enough. You don't need to go anything crazy hot. Just make sure that it melts the wax. Let's see, some things to talk about before we do this. You typically want to take your bindings off. It'll make it easier to rest on the table. You can see my mom was generous enough to get me a waxing station. So this is just a collapsible table with a little bit of foam on top. The foam grips your board and prevents it from sliding around. So if you have the bindings off, it's obviously easier to do this, but also it's good to have them off so that when you're heating up the backside of the board, it doesn't cause some of the wood to expand. And if you have your bindings tightened down really hard, that expanded wood might kind of push into the metal bindings or the hardware securing the metal bindings, and that can kind of cause some minor damage to your board. So it's best just to take it off and you should be good to go. So I'll just show you real quick the state of the board. Hopefully you can see it. There's typically we can see like the white lines on the side. That's usually a good sign that there's not any wax in your board. It's almost like a dehydrated plant. You can kind of, there's telltale signs that will show you that it needs waxing. So mine has that along either side, and especially along kind of the nose up here, right around here. So this is the board and we will get going. All right, so right now when I'm doing it, it's kind of giving me a bunch of little dots as it's melting. It's not a continuous stream, so I'm just gonna turn the heat up a little bit so that it would get to that continuous stream. There we go, that's much better. Maybe turn it up just a little more. All right, so I'm just gonna bring this in real quick. You can see the pattern that I did, not the prettiest, but the rails are usually where you're gonna want most of it, along with kind of this area here right before the tail, then the area here right before the tip. And then in between, I just did this little pattern. We're just gonna be melting it on. So what you do, let me transfer hands here. You can see I put some newspaper down just to catch any of the errant wax that falls. But what you're gonna be doing, heat the wax up so it'll get melted like that, and then push a little bit onto the tail. Just past the contact point. And then from then on, we're just gonna do this nice slow push that melts the wax into the board. We're just gonna have a pretty heavy hand and go smooth with it. Takes a little bit for the iron to heat up the wax. Now I'm just gonna move the board over a tad so that I can push down and the table support is under it. Move it one more time just to go back over this side. You can see it's not quite pushed over far enough. Well, let's say we have ourselves a fairly evenly coated snowboard. Put the iron down and turn it off, but first I'll set you down. All right, now it's best to let it sit and let it cool down before you start scraping away at it. I've heard some people say overnight. I want to say that the time that I typically go with is right around an hour. Let it go for at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And then come back and we'll give it the scrape. All right, we'll now be clearing the excess wax off of the board. We just heated it in into the seams, the pores of the board, and I've let it cool for about an hour now. So now we're on to the scraping section. The key here, put a little pressure on it. Make sure you pull it back. Don't push it forward. You can see all the excess wax that comes up with the scraping. we go. Nicely waxed board. You can see the edges are a little less streaky with white because the grain of the board has been covered up or has been filled in with the wax, so it's less streaky. There you go. Last step is to add that microstructure using the pad. So we'll give it a few rubs down with this, but we are well and through the hard part, which honestly is kind of the best part for me. It's almost therapeutic or cathartic, especially you throw in some good music and just vibe out on your own, getting ready for the adventures to come. All right, that is one waxed board. Say hello to, or say goodbye, I suppose, to Flippers. It's the name of my board here, because we saw a trail at, where are we at? Bridger Bowl in Bozeman. It was called Flippers. Me and my buddy over the lift, we looked down at it because it went right under the lift. It was this it's like 7-degree angle down, basically a cliffside, and this was a little bit early on in my snowboarding career. So we were looking at it like, this is impossible. Why is it even labeled as a trail? And then you would see all these locals just jumping off of it, going down it without second thought. So in our head, we made up the phrase, don't fuck with Flippers, because like we weren't gonna go there. And when I look at this guy, it's also someone I don't want to fuck with. So he got the name Flippers, so you're not gonna fuck with him. Anyway, that was kind of a quick and dirty run through of waxing your snowboard. You can see after the Scotch-Brite pad at the end, there's a little bit more structure and organization to the wax pattern on the bottom. But thanks for tuning in, and maybe I'll make some kind of snowboarding help video. But catch you next time.